Hey guys, Harrison back at it once again with a brand new video for you, and welcome to episode 3 of a returning series, the Racing Game Chronicles, where I take a look back at some classic racing games over the years. And in this episode we're going back to 2007 and Race Driver Grid for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, developed by Codemasters. Would you believe this game's nearly 6 years old now? It's aged really well, hasn't it? I picked this up again on the Xbox after some time out, and it was part of their little games on demand sale they've done in response to the PS4 launch. So you can pick up this game now for like £2.70. I highly recommend you pick it up if you haven't already. It's a steal at that money. But Race Driver Grid basically has you as a racing driver trying to be the best as the new guy on the world racing scene, taking on a whole heap of different challenges, tracks and cars and series to try and become the world's best racing driver. Obviously based around its main mode, which is called Grid World. In this, you're thrown into a solo mode where you're driving for other people's teams in certain events. Well, eventually to the point where you build your own team and have your own team partner as well, so you can take over the world, grow your reputation, and become the #1 racing team on the planet. And this game doesn't do this. It doesn't do these things half-heartedly. There's like nearly 60 different cars in the game to choose from. There's no real sense of car collecting like in Gran Turismo. It's just like a one-off purchase and you're done for that category. But what it does do is it has so many different tangents of race divisions and series and events. Like 1 minute you could be doing a demolition derby, the next minute you're driving muscle cars on street races. Next thing you know, you're doing open wheel races on official tracks. That's just the kind of game Grid is. It's so diverse in terms of disciplines, and you have all these different cars. Like next minute you're in a banger, and the next thing you know you're driving an open wheeled Formula 3 car. Next thing you know you're in a prototype Zonda R, and so on and so forth. Even to the point where you get to the pinnacle of the sport, the prototype Le Mans series kind of races, those LMP1 prototypes you see. They've got a whole heap of different tracks as well. Some of them are made up by Codemasters, some of them are official, like the Nürburgring, Istanbul Park, Donington's another one as well. Some of the official tracks they've listed into the game to go alongside some of the not so official ones and some of the street tracks they've put in there, mainly for America. Not to mention the hype of drifting parks and ranges as well, for drift events and two-gay events where you're chasing another car down a mountain, for example, trying to have as big a gap as possible. So there's a whole heap of different disciplines and options. Like I said, as you climb the reputation ranks and unlock more licenses and more events, you get to start thinking about bringing in a second driver, which the AI controls, and they all have their own strengths and weaknesses in different areas. Like for example, one guy might be a specialist in open wheel racing, but he might be really aggressive. Another guy might be really consistent, or another guy could, be really, really good at overtaking somebody. They all have their own strengths and weaknesses, and they all earn a certain amount of your earnings. So obviously, the better the driver, the more of the percentage they'll take out of your winnings, and possibly the better they'll be in certain areas as well. So all that comes into play as you grow as a team and as a driver as well. Like I said, eventually you reach the top of the division where you'll be talking like Le Mans and like serious rival races as well, which are very, very fun. And they play music in there to hype it up as well, to make it feel like it's more important. I'll talk about a bit more about the presentation in a little bit. But like I said, I have to give a special mention to special events like Le Mans 24 Hours, which is featured in this game. You can actually do the full Le Mans 24-hour race if you're crazy. But in the actual Grid World itself, it's just a 12-minute race, but in Le Mans they actually have the time change as it goes on. It will become dark, then it will become light again as you head towards the finish. But yeah, basically, more than anything else, I love that mode because it's the first time I played a Le Mans game or a Le Mans mode where it had gotten dark, and driving those 260-mile-an-hour LMP1 cars when it's pitch black, you can barely see another car around you and you have no idea what's going on. It's one of some of the most nerve-wracking things I've ever done in a racing game, like especially during the last 90 seconds of the race, or the last 15% of the race, where they'll basically you know, they basically just amp it up and make it feel like it's more important, which is tense but awesome. I love it. We're just talking about the presentation a little bit more as well. It's fantastic. This game was so far ahead of its time in terms of developments with damage modeling, something that Gran Turismo and Forza still can't get right after like many years away. Grid still has the best damage modeling of any probably modern racing game on the 360 or PS3. They just get it. I mean, like, tyres will fly out everywhere, bodywork will crumple and fly off the cars, the tyre walls will fly up in the air. It's fantastic, and it feels like you're a racing driver. The sound effects are great, the shunts sound realistic, the damage modeling is excellent, it's realistic too, and that's the best thing about Grid. Its presentation is so good. It hasn't got the polish of a Forza or a Gran Turismo, but it doesn't need to be. It's dirty, it's gritty, and that's what makes it special, and that's what Codemasters did so well. They took this game in a totally different direction from anywhere else, and that's what makes it so special, and that's what makes it stand out so well. And you can see some of the modelling was used in future games, like in Dirt, for example, and the Need for Speed Shift franchise as well. You can see many elements of what you see in Grid in more modern racing games now, and that's what makes it so good. The music, the soundtrack is so good as well, and that's what it all adds up. It all makes the game so great from that aspect. Not to mention as well the gameplay. Now this is an interesting aspect because I think Grid was one of those first real racing games to try and push the boundaries, and try to blur the line between what is an arcade racer and what's a simulated racing game, like the arcade races, like the Ridge Races of the world and the Wipeouts of the world, or the proper simulated racing games like Formula 1 now, Forza and Gran Turismo. This game did have some simulation elements. Cars did, for the most part, handle like real racing cars to a degree. Some of the emotions, like the power sliding, is definitely exaggerated, but you can definitely tell they were trying to make the game feel as immersive as possible, but also have a lot of arcade elements to it. Like, for example, you can't customize the cars. You can't get under the hood and have the car set up in a certain way to suit your own needs. So you just drive it out of the box, so to speak. Luckily, what I like about the game is because there's 6 different difficulty settings and a whole heap of different variables, like locking the head camera out or driving without driver assists, and obviously the number of flashbacks. Remember, this was the first racing game to have flashbacks in it, where you could go back in time if you had a crash and start from a fresh point, something that's never been done before in a racing game at that point. And you can see so many racing games copy that system now, but Grid was the innovator for that. But yeah, so because they had all these difficulty settings, you could make the game play to your own needs. Again, another thing you see in Forza. So yeah, it's just one of those things where I'm glad that element does it, because that's something about arcade races I can't stand. Rubber banding when there's not enough difficulty settings. So now you can tweak it and get it right for you, so you can either earn the maximum amount of reputation available, or cash, or in general just, make the game play to your own needs. And that's what makes it, and that's another reason that Grid is awesome. Finally, one thing that's worth mentioning as well, there is online gameplay. Some of the things there did annoy me. Obviously, you can't legislate for other people's incompetent driving, because there was a lot of trolls when I played Grid back then. Not much has changed now. But the touring cars are still some of the most fun things to do in any online racing game. Because you can have a little bit of argy-bargy. They handle, really loosely, so you can take corners at ridiculous speeds. One of the few things I don't like about Grid is that, some of the car stats do seem a little bit exaggerated, but besides that, still ridiculously good fun. Very competitive. I'm still annoyed you don't get any penalty for quitting a race or for DNFing. That's silly. And, why is it that you can turn collisions off? It should be forward collisions by default. There shouldn't be a situation where you should have all collisions on and people are going to be trolling. Like, people are parking their car sideways on the track. Just remove them if they're going to be like that. But just have it as forward collisions only. Don't turn collisions off. It kills the racing aspect, because having collisions off turns it into a time trial, and that was always silly. But besides that, overall, I absolutely adored Grid. Still one of my favourite racing games I've ever played. And if you have any memories of Grid and what you did with the game, please let me know. I'd love to hear what you thought of Grid. I've got a few more racing games lined up to do this series. So if you guys want to see more, like Need for Speed Most Wanted, Dirt Showdown, Dirt 3, Forza Horizon, etc, etc. So I've got plenty of these available if you guys want me to keep doing them. Until then, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will catch you guys next time. I've been Harrison101. Thank you very much for watching, and sayonara.